All right, welcome back to the AM show on the Joy News channel. Time for us to sit with a leading sponsor of the proper family values bill, which is currently something that we're debating whether or not it will be on the floor and how government is going to go about it. I have with me the physical education and health elective for senior high schools teacher manual, and this is the book year 2. It has the NaCCA seal on it, and if you look at it, it says this publication is not for sale or rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced without prior written permission from the Ministry of Education, Ghana, CARE 2025, Ministry of Education. If you go to page 3, explanation of sexual and reproductive health. Point 5, point 4, gender identity. It refers to a person's deeply felt internal experience of gender, which may or may not correspond with the sex assigned at birth. It can include being male, female, or a blend of both. This concept goes beyond the binary notion of gender, male and female, and recognizes the diversity of gender experiences and expression. Okay. And if you look at even point 5, it says gender expression. This refers to the external display of one's gender through a combination of dress, demeanor, social behavior, and other factors, generally measured on scales of masculinity and femininity. Now, there's also the issue about sexual rights on page 5. The recognition of sexual rights include the right of sexual pleasure, autonomy over one's own body, as well as freedom from violence and discrimination based on sexual or orientation and gender identity. Okay. So, particularly, it is the gender identity definition that Reverend Ntim Fordjour, who is our guest today, flagged. He is the ranking on the Security and Defense Committee of Parliament and also a lead sponsor of the Proper Family Values Bill. He flagged it and it became a major issue. Today, the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, NaCCA, has released a statement. It says, NaCCA clarifies issues pertaining to a teacher manual for the senior high school curriculum. The Ministry of Education and the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, NaCCA, have noted with concern recent allegations regarding the introduction of LGBTQ-related content into Ghana's senior high school curriculum. NaCCA reiterates in the strongest terms that no such context exists within the approved national curriculum. Distinction between curriculum and teacher manuals. It says it is essential to clarify that the national curriculum and teacher support materials serve distinct functions. The curriculum is the official policy document defining the mandatory areas of study for learners. In contrast, teacher manuals are supplementary instructional resources designed to provide pedagogical guidance to teachers. These manuals do not constitute the curriculum itself, and their use is optional. Teachers may deliver the approved curriculum without relying on these specific guides. Manual development and timeline. It says the development of secondary education curriculum is a dynamic process characterized by rigorous technical review and broad stakeholder consultations. We wish to clarify the following milestones. A new curriculum was introduced at the SHS levels in the 2024-2025 academic year for the first time in the history of Ghana. A decision was taken for teacher manuals to be developed to aid teachers in the implementation of the new curriculum. NaCCA therefore empaneled subject-specific writing teams in collaboration with the Transforming Teacher Education and Learning, TTL, to develop the manuals in 2024. Following a comprehensive internal review, NaCCA determined that a specific definition of gender identity, in quote, contained within the Year 2 Physical Education Health Elective Teacher Manual for senior high schools, the one I read earlier, was not reflective of the Ghanaian culture norms, and values. A revised version of the Year 2 Physical Education and Health Elective Teacher Manual, aligned with the national values and biological understanding, has been released, and it is accessible to the public and teachers. And it gave, the link where we can have access to that. Okay, let me open that too. It says steps are being taken to withdraw the printed version of the old manual from the system. All future revisions will be reflected in the digital version available at the official portal. Okay, so that is also there. And it says that the Ministry of Education and NaCCA are state unequivocally that the government of Ghana has no intention to promote, endorse, or introduce LGBTQ content at any level of the education system. Our curriculum remains firmly anchored in the socio-cultural fabric of Ghana, constitutional principles, and child-centered development goals. We are grateful for the continued support of the public as we take these responsible steps to ensure our educational resources remain a true reflection of our national identity. Conclusion. While the ministry respects public discourse and parliamentary oversight, we urge all stakeholders to ground discussions in verified fact. We remain committed to transparency, responsiveness, and the delivery of a high-quality education system that respects the values of the Ghanaian people. And this is signed by Professor Samuel O. Ofori-Bekwin, Director General. Reverend John Ntim Fordjour is here. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Joe.
So this is the response from NaCCA.
Very bizarre, very unfortunate, appalling, unacceptable response.
Really?
Professor Bekwin must be resigning by now.
Hey.
If we are in a serious country, you cannot print such manuals and distribute them to schools. And NaCCA, the agency mandated to be the safeguard, the gatekeeper, to ensure that every content going into the classroom are wholesome and aligned with our values, our culture, our laws. And then you review such teacher manual, you approve them, you print them with taxpayers' money, distribute them. You are saying it's optional. If it is optional, will you expend taxpayers' money to print thousands of copies to distribute? And then and to be the pedagogical guide, the fundamental reference to delivering instruction to students, and telling them that gender is no longer about the non-binary nature, about being a female or a male assigned by birth, but it's about the inner feeling, how you feel. So see, the flagging is not only on the gender identity. Every definition expressed here is problematic. Check, for instance, sexual orientation. It describes a person's pattern of emotional, romantic, or sexual attraction to others. Sexual orientation is about identifying as a male or identifying as a female. And when you are talking about the context of attraction and marital for reproductive and other related activities, it is in the context of the opposite sex. So every definition of sex is a problem. The definition of sexuality is a problem. So when we raise gender identity and sexual rights, which is on page 5, they quickly went online to make those changes. But every other thing stays as it is in the books. You see, I'm so appalled because for President Mahama, the President of the Republic, to promise Ghanaians that he will become president and be the first to sign the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill to clamp down on LGBT, to preserve our culture and values, for which overwhelmingly he is voted into power. He comes into power, and Catholic Bishop Conference go to him to confront him about the matter. The response he gives them is that, let us cure this with curriculum. You remember that? He said that we should cure, there's not even need for legislation, and that we should cure LGBT tendencies with curriculum. But so
he says it has to be, it has to emanate from the executive.
He said, he first said that it has to be cured from the curriculum. Then later he said that he wants to even sponsor a government bill, which bill after a year on has never been introduced. Then later he said that if the government, if the private member's bill comes to him, then he will sign. Then turns around, they gag it at Parliament, and for 1 year, they delete it from order paper, and they have given instruction to Speaker, to Majority Leader, to prevent it from being listed on the order paper. Until now, it has not been listed. But I'm referencing the curriculum direction he gave, that the LGBT matters ought to be addressed with curriculum and not even law. So if you were going to put indications to fight LGBT, we would have thought that you would have even introduced much stricter and much more conservative definitions into the teacher manual. But here, you rather introduce LGBT propagation, LGBT technologies, LGBT promotion, and you are telling and indoctrinating the most vulnerable group of people between 13 and 19 who are within our secondary schools that gender is no longer binary. It's no longer about female or male, but it's about inner feeling. That is very dangerous. That is so dangerous. And it says that it can include being male or female or a blend of both. That is most bizarre. When did Ghana determine that by our constitution? This constitution, 1992 constitution, it does not define gender as being a blend of both. It says that gender is non-binary. Being a male or female, our Criminal and Other Offences Act indicates, they spell it out. We know what gender means. And so for you to now indoctrinate learners and to promote LGBT, that when you are asked about your gender, it's no longer male or female, you can be a blend of both, or you can be neither, and it is about your inner feeling and how you feel. It is very dangerous, it is unpardonable, it is diabolical, and it's a deliberate attempt by this government. So it goes beyond the gender definition. I've noticed your team are using the terminology gender definition. It is not, the matter we are talking about is much more serious beyond gender definition. It is a grand agenda by this government, President Mahama-led government, to promote LGBT, sadly in schools, at the blind side of parents, at the blind side of stakeholders. So teachers did not even know about this. And they went into schools. These teacher manuals have been distributed to them. And then innocently, they have taught this already. Week 1 is already gone. They have taught these dangerous concepts to the students already. They have not issued any statement about how they are going to unlearn those concepts. This is week 1.
Okay.
This is week 1. So they've already taught it. They have not issued any directive how they are going to unlearn those dangerous, diabolical LGBT concepts. But the new direction they must go. Number 2. Number 2. It took me to prompt that this is what you have done. And it took the teachers in the classrooms who were handed this dangerous, diabolical, vile LGBT agenda document to prompt our attention to the fact that this is alien to the curriculum we developed and they were trained in, and teacher manual was expected to be brought out of it. And so when we raise
the statement is pointing this to when you were deputy minister. It says, NaCCA therefore empaneled subject-specific writing teams in collaboration with TTEL to develop the manuals in 2024. You were deputy minister then.
See, and that is one act of irresponsibility on the part of the Ministry of Education and NaCCA. And that is why I say the NaCCA Director General must resign by now. He's lying, he's throwing, he has failed on his job. He has printed this. I didn't print this. We didn't develop this. What we developed is the curriculum. You read the first, what does the first paragraph say? It said that the curriculum, as we approved it, does not have any LGBT element.
Yeah, it says that with concern, blah, blah, it says NaCCA reiterates in the strongest terms that no such contest exists within the curriculum. National curriculum.
What we did is a curriculum.
You didn't do the teacher manual?
We did year 1 teacher manual. And year 1 teacher manual does not contain these absurdities. So they came, and you rightly read it. Copyright 2025, Ministry of Education. So they came to develop the year 2 teacher manual and introduce these alien concepts. And then they go ahead to blame TTEL rather disingenuously and rather irresponsibly. TTEL has no wrongdoing. TTEL has no hand in this grand LGBT agenda by the Ministry of Education.
But if they were the team that developed that,
I have spent 4 years as Deputy Minister of Education. The framework for ensuring that teaching and learning material gets to the classroom is that regardless whether a private publisher or an independent consultant develops a teaching and learning material or textbook or supplementary material, it comes to NaCCA. Even if TTEL or any independent consultant for that matter did anything like this, it comes to NaCCA for NaCCA to do their final review before they emboss it with a NaCCA logo to indicate that this is a NaCCA approved material. So the attempt to throw TTEL under the bus, the attempt to sacrifice TTEL instead of the Director General of NaCCA incompetently watching and deliberately pushing this poison to our student is not acceptable. Because no matter whoever develops a textbook or supplementary or teacher manual, NaCCA, according to their mandate, is the final authority who does the checks. So who did the checks? So that's a line. That is
it is they say that following a comprehensive internal review, NaCCA determined that the specific definition of gender identity contained within the Year 2 Physical Education and Health elective teacher manual for senior high schools was not reflective of Ghanaian culture, norms, and values. A revised version of the Year 2 has been done.
Please pause there. When did they do that review? And when did they do the revision? Go on their website and check the dates of the last edit. When you go on any website, you're able to determine the date of the last edit. They edited just the gender identity and sexual rights definition yesterday afternoon after I had raised a red flag in the morning. That is when they hurriedly went online to make those changes. As we speak, their so-called revised version, which they edited yesterday, still bears the definition of sex, sexuality, and sexual orientation as pertained in this book. So if they indeed did their job well and they didn't sleep on their job, or it's not their deliberate agenda, before the book will even be printed, that is the time to do review. You don't do reviews when you have already printed the wrong things and circulated it and enforced it, and it's been implemented already, taught 2 weeks in the classroom. So that is a lie, because if they reviewed it, they would have flagged it even before going to the print. So we flagged it just yesterday. Go online and you see it. Just yesterday they edited it. So that is a big lie. And so the Director General of NaCCA must be fired for, one, sleeping on the job, and two, and being complicit in this grand LGBT agenda, and thirdly, coming to spill falsehood to Ghanaians. Number three, the most important thing is that, look, as we speak, this is the teacher manual in the hands of teachers. This is what is being taught. Them. Have you seen any directive directed at heads of schools, directed at regional directors of education, directed at teachers and HODs in physical education, that henceforth we are recalling all teacher manuals, and the instruction is that you must relinquish all of them, discard them from classrooms, and take steps to unlearn the dangerous, diabolical concepts you have already taught in week 1 and week 2. Unlearn them. Have you seen any such directive?
He says steps are being taken.
So that is probably
written to the headmaster.
No. So that's how long must it take to take those steps? And that's what I'm telling you. It was just yesterday, reactively and rather irresponsibly, incompetently, after we had flagged it, before they started. It took them several hours to even release the statement, saddled with a lot of mistakes and errors. So they are now even thinking about how to go about the recall. Well, yesterday, your sister station interviewed Joy News, Joy FM. They interviewed NAGRAC. They said they are not aware of any steps NaCCA has taken to enforce whatever they are saying they are going to do by recalling these manuals, and directive issued that they are even aware of, indicating that they should discard this book. They are not aware. So who did they write to? And who did they give that instruction to? And what steps have they taken? So these things, these books are still in the classrooms, and teachers are being forced to teach this poison to our students. The danger is that you may be a media person, you may be a clergy, you may be a traditional ruler, you may be a Muslim cleric, you may be a farmer, you may be, a trader, whatever endeavor you are. You have just sent your child to the school thinking and trusting that this government will teach them actual good concept, conservative principles and values in line with our norms. And you are trusting that there is an institution called NaCCA under the oversight of Ministry of Education that will be the gatekeeping and introduce safeguards to ensure that content delivered to them are wholesome. Unknown to you, you can be NDC, you can be MPP, you can be apolitical. They are poisoning your student. You must be worried. People must be worried. This matter must not be looked at with political consideration or partisan sensitivities.
It's been corrected in the manual.
It hasn't been corrected. I am telling you that
they said they have an online.
Check. So open the link.
I've opened it.
So when you open the link,
gender.
Read the definition of sex.
Okay.
And check it with this, and read the definition of sexual orientation, and check it with the handbook.
So
and see if there's any difference. The only thing they've changed is the gender identity and sexual rights. Those two. The rest are still in there.
Yes, but the issue was with gender identity.
The issue is not only with gender identity.
Okay, let me read sex. Sex says the biological and physical characteristics that define humans as female or male. These characteristics are caused by chromosomes, hormone levels, reproductive or sexual organs, and other physical traits. It also means the engagement in physical activities or behaviors involving sexual organs and often aiming for sexual pleasure or reproduction. That's true. That's sex.
Read sexual orientation. So now, and they bring terminologies. Sexual identity. Did you hear sexual identity? Gender identity. It was in.
Yeah, it's there.
But sexual orientation.
But it's been taken off. But there's sexuality.
Read all the terminologies.
Okay, sexuality.
The only thing that has changed is the gender identity and sexual rights.
That was the issue. But
no, that's not the only issue.
Okay.
And that is where people. That's why I have a problem with what you have entitled gender definition. The problem with this LGBT agenda is grant and not gender definition.
Okay.
So read the entire thing. So see, that's a problem I have with what you have put the gender definition. It's a grand LGBT promotion agenda. Nobody should attempt to downplay it.
Okay, sexuality. A broad range of concepts related to sexual feelings, thoughts, attractions, and behaviors toward other people. It includes sexual orientation, sexual behavior, and sexual identity.
And then what is sexual orientation? Okay. And all these you read.
Okay.
How have they changed?
Let me look at sexuality.
When did we start teaching our children that your sexual orientation is no longer being a male or female, but it's about however you feel towards anybody or others? And however your chromosomes and hormones, dictate to you. When did we start teaching our children this?
Reverend,
so if you're an NDC person and you think that this is the best doctrine that must be given to your children who are in their most vulnerable stage between 13 and 19, with all these, tendencies of LGBT already inherent in boarding houses, which we are trying to rid it off, and now it's been emboldened, being introduced, and teachers who our learners and children listen to more than their parents are being forced to teach students that your sexual orientation is no longer being a female or male, but it's about how you feel. And if you are an NDC person and you don't have any problem about that, you see, by the time your child is 3 years under NDC, they will come back home, and no amount of political indoctrination will change the sexual behavior and indoctrination that has been poisoned, that has poisoned them. So the point I'm making is that all the so-called definitions, the thing they have done, is only about gender identity and sexual rights. Every other definition, as problematic as they are, stand as they are.
Okay, let me go through the definition. Sexual orientation. The sexuality in the revised one they sent. A broad range of concepts related to sexual feelings, thoughts, attractions, behaviors towards others. It includes sexual orientation, sexual behavior, sexual identity.
How is that different from this?
It's still the same thing here.
Still the same.
For sexuality. Let's go to sexual orientation. It describes a person's pattern of emotional, romantic or sexual attraction to others. The same thing remains here.
It's the same thing.
But gender.
So that's what I'm telling you.
Gender has changed. Let me read it. It says,
it's only, and I've said it, that the only thing they have changed, only two things. Every other problematic LGBT agenda still remains. So if they change just these two and think that they have cured it, they have not cured it. And that is why I conclude that it is not an error, it is not an omission, but it is a deliberate attempt to poison the minds of the people. Because if it was an error, you would just find one or two errors. And once you lift them out, it cures the mischief. But in this case, they are claiming that, we have done a comprehensive review. And after our review, we have determined that only gender identity and sexual rights definitions are problematic. Those were the ones that initially initially I raised. And you see, when you do this thing bit and bit, if you had raised everything, they would just come and change everything and say, oh, well, but when I just raised the 2, they quickly went and said, we have just changed those 2. But all the other ones still remain. So just do fact checking. Their so-called revised one, which they are put back online, still contains all the problematic definitions under sex, under sexual orientation, under sexuality. And that is how deliberate this government wants to poison the minds of the future generation. At a time when President Trump, President of the United States, jurisdictions that hitherto people would have thought that would have pushed down these values on us and even apply sanctions if you fail to, condone to certain constitutionalities, is clamping down on these definitions. If you have these definitions from sex, sexuality, and all that, and teaching these things in the United States today, they will cut off funding to your school. That is a policy. He has given a policy, foreign policy directive to all his envoys, in all the ambassadors he has appointed to various nations, how they must relate to countries, and even tax them that countries that will seek to promote and propagate LGBT tendencies will be sanctioned. Is this the time that you, President Mahama and NDC, you should be introducing these into teacher manuals and be teaching, and then they make a statement in the NaCCA response that, oh, they are downplaying, it is not optional, it is optional. Didn't you read it?
Yeah.
They said that this
manual is optional.
It's optional.
But is it not?
It is, they don't even understand how critical teacher manual is in curriculum implementation. You can have the best, the fantastic, most competent curriculum in the world. It is there. How many people see curriculum? How many people have seen curriculum? It is somewhere, it's a framework, it is there. But the most important tool to deliver that curriculum and to implement it is the teacher manual, is the teacher guide, is the pedagogy. It is what the teacher lessons, is lesson notes and all that drawn from the teacher manual, which must be aligned to the curriculum. So if you decide that your teacher manual should be misaligned, and your teacher manual you should smuggle LGBT into it, that is what the learner is going to have. That is the definition the learner is going to learn.
So the sexual right.
So they should not even attempt to downplay it. And it's not optional because they printed it for all teachers. All teachers who teach the subject. Okay. If it were optional, would you have printed it?
The sexual rights definition in the revised one has not changed. But I have a question. It says the recognition of sexual rights includes the right to sexual pleasure, autonomy over one's own body, as well as freedom from violence and discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender. How is this wrong?
These are when it comes to LGBT, and this push and pull and advocacy, these are the terminologies. When they went to the Vienna, the UN, United Nations Human Rights Council, NDC, when they went last year to vote in a rather unfortunate far departure from our position as a country and abstained from matters of LGBT, they were appointing an independent consultant who was going to ensure these terminologies are what must be enforced. When did you hear these terminologies in our education system? When did you hear concept of sexual rights, orientation? You can feel anything, whether you're a boy or girl, you can feel anything to others, not the opposite sex, and then engage in sexual pleasures with anything and others without, and they say it does not have regard for being a male or female. You can even be both. When did we start introducing these concepts into our constitutional society? But do you know the dangerous thing, and why I conclude again that it is a deliberate grand agenda by the NDC? Read the reports of the Constitutional Review Committee. They have also introduced similar content to come and add it. See, our Constitution is very clear on our values in terms of family. Now they are pushing the LGBT things, and these things about you can feel anything, you can take any orientation and by your feelings and do anything you like and express your sexual pleasures. These are the very terminologies and clauses that NDC government want to push into the constitution. And see, they are doing these things very quietly. Not many people will take the pain to read all these. So our brothers and sisters in my village, Asinkruwa, in Azim, in Disco, for instance, in Agran Kwanta, will just say, oh, me, I'm NDC. I'm going to vote referendum because my NDC people say I should vote yes. You are voting yes to make sure you hang your child's future, your child's values around this diabolical concept. And once fundamentally it finds expression in this constitution, we are doomed. So we should be mindful of the agenda of this government, a government that campaigned on the back of LGBT. Who would have thought that it would be under their tenure, that teacher manuals, the NaCCA will print it, and DES will send it to schools, and Ministry of Education will spend money and pay for it, and supervise it, and so pretend over gender being fluid. You can be both, it can be a blend. It's about how you feel, it's about inner sexual pleasure, and it's not about whether you are assigned at birth, male or female. Well, how did we get here in the first place?
But we need to define
how did we get here?
We need to define terms. So what do you want?
Gender is defined a non-binary nature.
They've defined it as such, but you're saying that there are still mixed
sexual orientation. Sexual orientation is your orientation has been a man or a woman, being a male or a female. That is it. What more is?
So what do you want them to do?
See, the fluid and inspired by LGBT proponents, and in expanding the, now if you are applying to schools in those LGBT jurisdictions, you will be shocked the kind of gender fluidity you see there.
Yeah.
That's what they want to introduce here. That's the same thing NDC is introducing. Then when you talk, they'll say, oh, but it's a modern trend. It is acceptable. That is how sexual orientation must be defined. Who said in Ghana, that is how we define our sexual orientation?
What do you want them to do?
They must recall the textbooks.
They say they're doing that.
They are not. They haven't. They haven't shown us any directive to that effect. And two, they must delete every digital form and online version of this book, and they must sit down for us to have a comprehensive review of all that have gone in. And they must ensure that the Committee on Education in Parliament is involved. And as a matter of fact, they pay visits to accompany the retrievals of all this material, because they have demonstrated that Ghana cannot trust them to do what they are paid to do, what they were elected to do, and what institutions are mandated to do. So after all these things are done, we are urging the government to take their hands off and give another instruction to Speaker and Majority Leader Mahama Yarega to list the Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill on the order paper. And we are also urging further that the inclusion of LGBT proposals into the constitutional review proposal must be deleted from whatever white paper or whatever committee further they want to take and to state what must go for referendum. They must take all those things out.
Okay.
And three, and they must appear before Parliament to answer questions, because this is unacceptable.
Okay.
How Minister for Education, as the Director General for NaCCA, he must be fired. So by the time they are appearing, they must appear with an acting Director General of NaCCA. This must not go like that. It must have consequences.
Okay.
Then after they have explained why this thing happened and the steps they are taking, and we have quality assured it, my appeal to Ghanaians is that this is not about NDC or MPP. This must not be viewed with partisan consideration. This must not be looked at with political sensitivities. It's about your child. It's about the innocence of that young girl, that young boy of yours in the school. Let us all rise up and show interest. If you're a preacher, you are a pastor, you are a prophet, apostle, you are a bishop, you are an imam, you are a chief, you are a fetish priest, whichever religious affiliation that you are, that you led strongly demonstrations against the previous government because you were told that somebody wants to accept LGBT at a time when we didn't have textbooks and teacher manuals in schools that contain these things. Okay. And today you are quiet. Let us rise up, because if we don't, and we do give other considerations, goodwill, and what somebody is benefiting from, it is your children that are being poisoned. It is your children that are being indoctrinated.
Okay.
And after they have spent 3 years under President Mahama NDC government with these kind of teaching and learning materials, no amount of preaching, no amount of Quranic citation, no amount of deliverance, prayer, or libation can remove and unlearn these concepts.
I'm grateful. Reverend John Ntim Fordjour is a lead sponsor of the Proper Family Values Bill, which we don't know where it will be now. But this one from NaCCA says, NDC are simply playing with the minds of Ghanaians with the introduction of LGBTQ into a curriculum. Okay, so now they define it's not curriculum, it is with the teacher manuals. No wonder they are silent on the LGBT matter as they are in power now. They were so loud in opposition only to turn around and promote the lesbians and gays activities. NaCCA Ablikuma Central, aka Dr. Baumia, will lead MPP into victory 2028. Thank you very much, sir. But AM show is sponsored by Shield Silicon Paint from the Azar Group, Syntex Pipes, and Time Mobile Mixture. Now, First Sky Group invites the public to its 23rd Thanksgiving service themed Proclaiming the Mighty Deeds of the Lord from Psalm 71:15 to 16, hosted by founder and executive chairman Mr. Eric Sedi Kutuche. Kutuche. Activities begin with an all-night service on Friday, January 23rd, 2026 at the Trinity Temple Assemblies of God in Tema. The main Thanksgiving event takes place on Sunday, January 25, 2026 at the Accra International Conference Center, featuring Reverend Dominic Yeo as guest speaker, Apostle General Sam Kranchi Ankra as chairman, His Excellency John Romani Mahama as special guest of honor, and administration music by Kofi Owusu Pepra. Now, we'll take a break here. We'll be back with more. Do stay.